97, costlier by 7 shillings and 94 cents. Energy and Petroleum Authority Director General says the latest increases are after the cash from the Fuel Stabilization Fund was not tapped to subsidize pump prices, as has been the case in the last 4 months.
Kenyans should brace for high cost of living after the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority has increased fuel prices to a record by as much as 13 shillings. This is despite a decrease in the landing cost of super petrol and diesel by 0.72% and 4.81% respectively, while kerosene was up by 0.96%. However, EPRA Director General Daniel Kipto says, unlike has been the case over the last 3 months, the regulator did not tap the Fuel Stabilization Kitty to subsidize pump prices to keep prices unchanged. This has seen a litre of super petrol increase by 7 shillings and 54 cents, while diesel is costlier by 7 shillings and 94 cents, and kerosene, which saw the biggest increase, is up by 12 shillings and 97 cents. Fuel will be cheapest in Mombasa, where a litre of super petrol will cost 132.4 shillings, diesel at 113.36 shillings, and kerosene at 108.57 shillings. In Nairobi, a litre of petrol will retail at 134.72 shillings, diesel at 115.6 shillings, while kerosene will be sold at 110.82 shillings. Fuel will be most expensive in Mandera, where a litre of super petrol will retail at 147.75 shillings, diesel at 128.64 shillings, and kerosene at 123.86 shillings. The increased pump prices are likely to drive up the cost of transport and have a ripple effect on the cost of living. Benson Rioba reporting for Prime Edition.
Well, obviously that story will remain on the lips of many for days to come. From pain at the pump to education matters, and Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Mboya has told off those opposed to competency-based curricula, accusing them of propagating false information about the new education system. Speaking during the consultative meeting right here in Nairobi that brought different players, Professor Mboya at the same time insisted that teachers have been well trained on CBC and that the ministry is focused on ensuring that the system was a success. Timothy Kipnusu puts that story into perspective for us.
A post-mortem on competence-based curriculum 1 year since it was rolled out.
Why do you allow people to use vocabularies for grade 3, grade 4 people?
Different players pinpointed grey areas that needs to be improved. A number of those who participated wanted to know how the assessment is done and how fairness is achieved if the teachers is the one involved.
You can check with the schools the kind of assessment that was sent to schools. You will see that unlike what we have now, it touches on the cognitive, that is what you have in your brain. It touches on the affective, which is now being modified in social behavior, and it touches on the psychomotor, the 3 principles that we are supposed to test in a learner.
Also, issues to do with how the system is applicable to the pastoral communities arose.
In Maralal, they'll use the context and what they have in the pastoralist areas. And not just the pastoralist areas, even in other areas, it is the same.
It is a purpose and a journey which can only be strengthened because we know there is nothing permanent. Everything can always be improved, and it is something that we have a commitment to do.
It is in this forum that participants also wanted to know how universities are prepared for the system.
The universities have their commission that regulate them. That apart from that transition in 2023, where universities must provide the human resources and must be capacitated for it, 2029, all other schools in universities are implicated. Whether students are going to do medicine, whether they are going to do law, they will be graduates of CBC, and it's important to start working now.
This even as Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Mboya accused those spreading false information about the curriculum.
That there are certain facts which have been deliberately ignored by both the so-called specialists and the most learned members of the press. You ignore because you have refused to check.
Professor Mboya vowed to ensure the system is a success and dismissed those claiming that the teachers are inadequately trained.
If it is politics, excuse me. I don't do it and leave me out of it. But I want to assure the nation and the parents that as far as we are concerned, we are going to do everything possible to ensure that CBC is a success.
His sentiments follow an uproar by some parents who have claimed that the new education system is expensive and too involving. Timothy Kipnusu for Prime Edition.
In Laikipia County, chaos erupted in Rumuruti town after pastoralist and farming communities clashed. The pastoralists are reported to have invaded small-scale farms and ranches. The town turned chaotic as the groups hurled stones at each other, torched motorbikes and lit bonfires on the roads before the police managed to restore order in the busy town.
In Rumuruti town, Laikipia County was a no-go zone Tuesday morning as pastoralists and farming communities engaged each other physically. The farmers accusing the herders of invading their farms after they were flashed out of all Moran and nearby ranches and conservancies by the police.
Jana wamelisha mashamba ya watu na wamekuwa wakifanya hivyo karibu wiki mzima.
Kwa wiki mbili hakuna kazi inafanyika hapa sababu ya kilio cha wakulima wetu.
The conflicting groups torched motorbikes and lit bonfires on the roads. Police, however, managed to restore order in the busy town, which also doubles as the headquarters of Laikipia West constituency. According to Frederick Njuguna, a member of the Rumuruti business community, the flare-ups began after farmers impounded herds of cattle from their farms on Tuesday morning.
Mang'ombe haya inajulikana ni ya nani, sababu watu wale si wageni, ni watu wanajulikana.
The chaos leaving several residents with deep cuts.
Hawa vijana ambao wameandamana siku ya leo na wakulima wanalia kwa sababu saa hizi kuna watu wengi sana wako hospitalini, wengine wamejeruhiwa, zaidi ya watu 7 wamekuwa na majeraha.
Lakini saa hii tunaongea huyo mtu ako Rumuruti Sub County Hospital na amekatakatwa mbaya sana.
Rumuruti Township MCA Joseph Suge said Marura village residents were the most affected, given that the area is home to both farmers and pastoralist communities.
Lakini ile tatizo kubwa sana hapa imekuwa ni ukosefu ya heshima. Na mimi ningeomba serikali waweze kuchukua hatua na kuona ya kwamba hili jambo limesuluhishwa kwa haraka.
The protests come days after a police operation to flash out illegal herders from Olmoran following 2 months of skirmishes that left at least 8 civilians dead.
Well, from security issues in Laikipia, or better still, lack of it, a report released by the betting task force is recommending strict lottery watershed period to ensure that children are protected. The report handed over to the Media Council of Kenya also wants, among other things, a fund to be drawn from the lotteries to set up rehabilitation centers for those affected by gambling. Kenya Broadcasting Corporation Managing Director Dr. Naeem Bilal, who was present at the handover ceremony, said gambling should be conducted in a way that promotes public good but not as a source of making quick money. Here is that report.
The report released by Betting Task Force and handed over to the Media Council Tuesday is recommending a review of the Betting, Lotteries and Gaming Act to address the existing loopholes being exploited to hoodwink Kenyans. It further recommends a stringent betting licensing regime that is expensive to discourage rogue conduct. It wants betting by minors criminalized.
But whichever way you look at it, betting, gambling, gaming, whatever you want to call it, is devouring our society to some extent. And we must act now.
Media houses are required by the report to adhere to the periods stipulated.
We will go the whole hog so that we can protect Kenyans and make sure that betting is responsible, content is responsible, and that Kenyans remain protected and not exploited.
Having said that, I wish to indicate that KBC will interact with this report and will be very much happy to implement its recommendations. We were key to the report in the sense that I did sit with my representatives who appeared before this task force, and we did discuss very candidly, very robustly, what KBC's submission should be.
During the handover, the Communication Authority of Kenya warned media houses against conducting lotteries outside the prescribed law.
Gambling must be done in a responsible manner at the stipulated times as are dictated in the programming code. Doing it out of those set limits and standards could be harmful to certain sections of our communities.
Kenya Broadcasting Corporation Managing Director Dr. Naim Bilal called for the protection of society from entities that want to make quick cash through gambling.
The bottom line of our submission was that gambling must be conducted in a manner that mainstreams, promotes the public good, not just the commercial interests of those involved in it.
The report will be forwarded to Parliament for requisite necessary legislation.
To the pandemic situation here in Kenya, 451 people have tested positive for COVID-19 from a sample size of 6,833 tested in the last 24 hours. The data from the latest cases, 436 are Kenyans, while 15 are foreigners. 835 people have recovered from the disease, increasing the total recoveries to 234,737. The death has also increased to 4,928 after 5 patients succumbed, all being late reports in September 2021. Globally, more than 225.4 million people have tested positive, while over 4.64 million others have lost their lives. Away from that, Deputy President William Ruto is calling on Kenyans to vote for leaders based on their personality and not tribes. Ruto took issue with leaders forming tribal alliances, saying that tribal politics that have been witnessed in the country for long must come to an end. Ruto Tuesday met and engaged with small-scale traders from Nairobi County at his current residence. He said he will push for the modernization and upgrading of public markets and access to affordable credit to small businesses.
Siasa si ukabila, siasa ni maslahi. Siasa si mapenzi, siasa ni maslahi. Where your interests are, that is where your vote must be. Tunaelewana? Unapiga kura mahali maslahi yako iko. Upigii mtu kura ati kwa sababu ni ya kabila yako ama ni ya dini yako ama ni ya rafiki yako. Hapana, unapiga kura kwa muungwana mwenye amepanga mambo ya maslahi ambayo inaangalia maslahi yako.
Now moving on, Bomet County Governor Dr. Hilary Barchok was Tuesday questioned by the Senate County Public Accounts and Investment Committee over alleged bias in recruiting county officials. According to the committee, the county employed 73 individuals from one dominant community in the region within a span of 1 year, contrary to the County Government Act.
Bomet Governor Dr. Hilary Barchok appeared before the Senate County Public Accounts and Investment Committee to answer audit queries relating to the 2018-2019 financial year. One of the glaring issues was alleged nepotism in recruitment.
The law requires that you have a 30% allowance for members of other communities. And I emphasize this in every meeting we have here, that you people, what I see in front of me are all young men and educated and civilized, and should be at a point where we want this country to move forward as Kenya.
We always encourage our public service board. Every time we have adverts, if we check our adverts, we encourage people from outside the community to apply. But all the same, even when you check our shortlisting, normally we have people from different ethnic communities. But sometimes we have challenges. You shortlist, and then tomorrow when it comes to other things, because there are a number of factors that you consider when you are employing people. One, we have mentioned competence, experience, and so forth. Some of them fall shortfall, and then probably, unfortunately, you still have the same people coming from that ethnic community that is dominant in Bomet. But we also want to have a clear definition of when we talk about dominant community.
Chaired by Ochilo Oyako, The committee also questioned irregular payments of 5 million shillings to the Council of Governors.
Are you still sending money to the Council of Governors? Because we had the case where all the other counties had issues like, I think one was the devolution conference.
We have had challenges, but like this year we didn't remit any money even for the devolution conference. We opted even out. We are not participating because of these challenges that we have been having. Because we are supposed to remit, I think, 2 million, but we didn't do that this financial year.
Senators expressing similar concerns raised by the Auditor General that Bomet County had not met revenue targets for 5 years, except for 2016-2017 financial year, an issue Dr. Barchok said is being addressed.
Since automation of revenue, we have experienced tremendous increment in revenue collection, and systems changeovers have been handled properly to ensure that there are no leakages in revenue collection. In the financial year 2016-2017, there was an ad valorem disbursement, a one-off disbursement of Kenya shillings 67,015,009 after a court ruling which was accounted as local revenue, though it was not local revenue per se.
On Monday, the committee will meet the Nakuru County Executive.
In other news, the contractor putting up a modern law court in Siaya has been ordered to refund over 3 million shillings that it was to use for purchase of water during construction, but ended up using the commodity from the court's main connection. More of this in our county news roundup.
According to a joint team comprising members of the National Assembly Public Account Committee, the Office of the Auditor General and Judicial Headquarters, the contractor MS Nachang Foreign Engineers Kenya Limited will have to refund 3.2 million shillings after it was established that it did not spend any penny on water.
There was a question of some 3.2 million that the contractor was to have used for purchase of water during construction, but instead the contractor used water that was already pre-connected to the station, and we have directed that money must be refunded.
Elsewhere, the Kakamega County Assembly has been urged to be sensitive to the plight of small-scale traders when they will be debating the 2021 finance bill. Stakeholders who spoke during a public participation forum on the bill at the county social hall said that introducing more levies and licensing targeting small-scale traders will crumble their business. And a 19-year-old Form 4 student at St. Mongovia Boys High School in Embu County has been missing from school for a week now.
Lakini kuna vijana wale walikuwa wanasema walikuwa na yeye kwa mbweni. Wenye sasa aliwaambia ameenda kwa darasa kuchukua funguo. Walikuwa wanambishania kwa box labda ameweka kitabu yao. Sasa ndio wakamwambia afungue sanduku, na yeye akawaambia sanduku funguo ameacha kwa darasa.
Still in Embu County, the local security committee has attributed the increase in COVID-19 cases to issues such like family gatherings and violation of curfew laws. Speaking after a meeting, Embu County Commissioner Abdullahi Galgalo said 46 people were arraigned in the past week, taking an issue with boda operators for playing a cat and mouse game with the law enforcers during curfew hours.
Natoa mwito kwa watu wetu wakati wanapo changanyika kwa hali ya maombi, wahakikishe makanisani, misikitini wameweka ile tunaita social distance, kwenye magari zetu hivyo kwenye eneo za biashara zetu iwe namna hiyo.
Finally, the government has been asked to support equipping a new Kenya Medical Training College campus in Kangema, Murang'a. The campus, which was constructed by the local National Government Constituency Development Fund at a tune of 100 million shillings, is ready to admit students once the facility is equipped. Reporting for Primetime News, Karaya Itumbi.
Very well, the county wrap segment brings us to our first break right here on KBC Prime Edition.
Absolutely. Coming up, one-on-one interview with Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Mercy Mwangangi, as we engage her on matters COVID-19 universal health coverage. Is COVID-19 a necessary evil when it comes to attainment of UHC? Remember, the head of state had this agenda that had to be achieved by next year before the end of his second term.
All right, so engage with us. We're going to take a short break. Don't go right away. We'll be back.
Stay with us.
Historia, yani ni muungano wa
miaka ya hivi majuzi, yani Senate na Lower House, sasa zimeungana pamoja na kuwa bunge moja la kuwatumikia wananchi wote katika Jamhuri ya Kenya.
It is with deep satisfaction that I address a National Assembly that has unified itself into one single chamber. Unity is desire of our people. It is the hope of our nation. I rejoice that we now have one House of Parliament which is sovereign for all Kenya. We have demolished many strongholds, and in their place we have built a fortress of unity in this new assembly.
Usitegemee kupata jino lenye afya kwenye mdomo uliooza. Usikubali kupokea zawadi ya nguo kutoka kwa mtu aliyeuchi. Mapenzi ni kufaana, nifae ni kufae. Hisani ni njia mbili, nipe nikupe. Ila ni muhimu kufahamu kuwa sio binadamu wote watakushukuru hata watendeapo mema. Ukitaka thawabu kutoka mbinguni, we tenda wema tu uondoke.
Ili kupata skiza tune ya pumzi ya busara, bonyeza *811 *815 bonyeza *811 *815
Utabakia hapa hapa mpaka siku nitakapoamua.
Kama hajashtakiwa mwachilie nimpeleke kwake. She's been through a lot.
Through a lot kitu gani? Mimi nafaa kujani?
Niwachie roho yangu tafadhali Kate. Mimi nitakujibu nini?
Wacha kujifanya wazimu wewe, sawa? Hizi nguo ni za nani?
Labda ungependa kufanya nini?
Niwe housewife.
And some 2 years ago, Kenya embarked on a universal health coverage that would see Kenyans access affordable health, and that was in 2018. But then COVID-19 happened. So tonight we find out how much of a problem or distraction has COVID-19 been towards the achievement of universal health coverage. Of course, this is the agenda by the president, that he aims that by 2022, before the end of his term, then most Kenyans should be enjoying and accessing, affordable health. So tonight we speak with the Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Mercy Mwangangi. It's a great pleasure to have you tonight.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Purity.
Yeah, and when you resumed office in 2019.
2020
January, yes. 2020 January, the agenda was just to ensure that universal health coverage is attained by 2022.
Yes.
But then COVID-19 just happened.
Yes.
2 months into, at the Ministry of Health. Maybe you can tell us how big of a problem, is COVID-19? How much of a distraction has it caused as far as attainment of universal health coverage is concerned? Yeah.
So Purity, to tell this story and to tell this journey, we have to go way back to when our country attained independence. The UHC story, the UHC journey actually began all the way back to 1963, 1965. And I remember, when we were working on this program, when we were engaging with different teams to try and set up a structure of how this can be delivered, we always made reference to the paper by our forefathers. There's actually a Pan-African paper that was done that said that, the Kenyan government aims to eliminate disease, illiteracy, lack of knowledge, amongst other things. And so you can see governments from inception of this country, particularly at independence, have always been trying to make investments towards UHC. And when we, were putting in place all the different platforms that would move this program ahead, we did a lot of research. We tried to build a lot of evidence by looking at different countries. How have they progressed in their journeys? We actually even had some of these countries come in and talk to us and try and, work with us, collaborate with us in terms of painting the UHC agenda and making it come into life. And I can tell you, Purity, for one, the pure basics of the UHC agenda, the pure fundamental elements of what His Excellency the President Uhuru Kenyatta wanted to achieve is to essentially ensure that healthcare is affordable for Kenyans. And so the big question on the table is, where are we on the journey of making healthcare affordable, and has this journey been affected by COVID-19? And here I can tell you it's a mixed bag of goodies. Some elements of COVID-19 have definitely been useful, particularly because the whole world has focused on healthcare. Everyone has been talking about healthcare for the past 2 years. I think more than ever, people appreciate the role that health plays in their lives. I think more than ever, governments now appreciate investments towards the health sector. And Kenya has not been left behind. The COVID-19 pandemic has seen more allocation of resources internally, at least within the Ministry of Health, within the health sector. However, of course, these resources have been primarily towards putting in place infrastructure to deal with the pandemic. And one of the gains that we've seen, and I'll start with the positive side as I try to highlight where we have challenges. On the positive end, we've seen a lot of infrastructural developments when it comes to the capacities of our health facilities to deliver services. I think one key element is that we have more healthcare workers working in the health space. Many may not know, but through this government's term, we've actually employed almost over 10,000 personnel. And these personnel were actually being onboarded as part of the UHC program to ensure we have more nurses, more doctors. And so what we did is we quickly were able to utilize this same staff for COVID-19 pandemic. And so that's a that's a good thing. More grounds, more boots on the ground, more people working, more people offering services, even obviously also, ensuring that there's some form of economic stimulus by employing more young people. So that was the positive side of things. Of course, if we look at hard infrastructure, we've invested and we continue to invest in oxygen infrastructure across counties. There's been perhaps, let me say, a relooking at, do we have enough needs of oxygen in the countries? If we look at basic things like isolation centers, Kenya had been lucky for the longest time to never deal with a pandemic. Ebola, we had threats of Ebola, but it never got here because we were ready and we were safeguarding the country.
Is that the same thing that you anticipated? Because that time the pandemic had not even hit any African country. So were you prepared for such a time, or would you say you are focused? Because I remember it was in 2020 when we expected that UHC would be rolled out to the rest of the 43 counties.
And so again, it's interesting. The world did not see COVID coming. As a country, one good thing is that we always have what we call pandemic preparedness plans. Those are plans that all governments have, not just Kenya. Many governments sit and, determine, should we get a shock in terms of the health system, usually a pandemic, how will we deal with it? So we had our plan. But I can tell you, experiencing COVID made us move faster when it came to setting up infectious disease units. It made us move faster when it came to interactions and engagements with the experts. I'm sure you've seen all the experts who are now, helping us manage this pandemic. It made us move faster when it came to testing facilities. Remember, we started with just 2 labs and we moved quickly to about 47, now even more labs across the country. So there were gains. And when we look at the UHC journey, of course, there were disruptions. Primarily at that time, we had, no idea in terms of we have a pandemic coming in. And so our focus was on, can we ready our health facilities to deliver services to Kenya? And it's interesting, having engaged with different Kenyans, the main thing that they want is we want doctors in the facilities, we want the medicines available in the facilities, and we want this healthcare to be affordable. And I can tell you the government was already starting to tick these boxes. In terms of healthcare being affordable, we had already started looking at NHIF as an implementing vehicle for this. And again, interestingly, because when you invited me here, I was reflecting on this journey of UHC, and I've been engaged in the journey now for almost 5 years, even prior to me taking the current appointment that I hold. And I looked at NHIF, and it's remarkable. Many may not know, but short of maybe 7 years ago, you could not get cancer services through NHIF. You know, short of 7 to 5 years ago, you could not pay for dialysis with your NHIF card. NHIF only took care of your daily bed rebate. That was it. 5 years ago, you could not get your surgery done. You could not get your fibroids removed. You could not get knee surgery. Now you can. And really, that's a testament of what UHC is. It's a journey. And of course, the end goal, what is the end goal? What did the president envision? Of course, it's that everyone in the country, all Kenyan citizens, all 47 million of us, are able to have access to that card, and that we're able to walk into a health facility, find a doctor, find medicine, and be able to get care. And that is what we are working on. Is this a journey that will be completed by 2022? Most likely not. With the pandemic right now particularly, there have been disruptions, like I've told you. A lot of resources have been invested towards COVID-19. And so this is now a journey. But however, there's a silver lining, because one of the key bills that we have in Parliament right now is the NHIF bill. And I'm sure you've had discussions on it. And this bill will actually cement and will form part of the stepping stone towards UHC. And why? Because it mandates that we will all be able to have a UHC card or an NHIF card, and we will walk with that card, and the card will allow us to access services.
And COVID-19, let's say it's a case study, because part of the UHC agenda is to ensure elimination of diseases, but we are still struggling with flattening our curve. We are still above the 5% recommended by the World Health Organization. Is it Kenyans who are not doing enough? Is it resources that we do not have? What exactly is the problem?
So I must say, and we've been seeing this positivity rate going down. I think if we were having this discussion 3 weeks ago, we would have been at 11, 12%, maybe even 16. Today we're at 6.6%. And when we discuss with the health providers, when we talk to the CEOs of the different hospitals, they're telling us that even they are noticing that admissions are reducing. This morning I had a talk with some of the private sector CEOs, and they're seeing declining admissions. And so there's efforts that have been put in place. I'm sure the restrictions that were there, I'm sure our vaccination program is starting to make headway in reducing, the numbers of COVID-19.
And would you say the vaccination drive that we are having as a country has a hand in this?
I would say, and right now, I mean, that's a very good question. As the expert teams in the ministry are trying to do that, mathematics to really define what has been the proportion of cases averted because of the vaccination campaign. But what I can tell you without any doubt is that this is one of the big weapons we have against COVID-19. Countries who've gone before us in this have demonstrated good success with vaccination programs. And so for us in the Ministry of Health, for us as government, that is one of the tools that we are using, perhaps one of the bigger tools that we are using. But you raised an important point earlier. Are we doing enough as citizens? And really, the idea here is, we've spoken hoarse as a ministry. Individual responsibility is so important. When I walked in here, this evening, I asked all of your teammates here, have you been vaccinated? Are you sure you got the jab? Which jab did you get? Are you on your first or your second jab? These are important conversations that we need to have in our homes, with our colleagues, with our friends, with our community members, because really at the end of the day, that step, that individual effort for you to go get a vaccine, that individual effort for you to mask, that individual effort for you to have your sanitizer or wash your hands is so crucial against this pandemic.
And why I ask this, the ministry, do you have a strategy? Because we've been seeing surge, the numbers come down, then we experience another wave. From the scientific or expertise point of view, will the vaccination, exercise maintain the curve the way it looks like, or are we expecting to see another cycle? Because clearly it's a tiresome experience.
I agree with you. I agree with you. You've picked the words right out of my mouth. It's a tiresome experience for everyone. For government, it's tiresome. And we need that stability. Now, when we look at it, if we can be able to meet our target of 10 million vaccines by December, that will definitely be very helpful when it comes to containing this disease and this pandemic. And so that's one of the measures that we're looking at. if we can ensure, and this is very important, Purity, that we have some form of order as we engage people, you know, we're getting into a political season as a country, then if we can stem, you know, the groupings of people during that time, if we can conduct our politicking in a different manner, then I'm sure we'll be able to have, you know, a dropping down of this curve and a continuous decline. However, on the flip side, Purity, if we continue mixing, if we do not have people coming forward for vaccination, if we have a new variant, and you know this is a disease that's continuously, it's a virus that's mutating, then you know those are things that we need to safeguard against to ensure that we don't erode our gains. And so right now it's all determined by our individual efforts and this vaccination program. And I can tell you, the Ministry of Health has been successful in running vaccination campaigns in the past. In fact, Kenya, as you would know, has been lauded for doing very good, you know, work when it comes to childhood vaccines, when it comes to our BCG, our, you know, all the other vaccines that we give our young children. And so we're using the same artillery, we're using the same stuff, we're using the same infrastructure and mechanisms that we have. And luckily now, at least in the coming few months, we do see that we will be able to have our doses available in the country, at least maybe 9 million of them. And so these doses will go a long way in stemming this disease.
And talking of the doses, the World Health Organization did forecast a 25% decline, you know, in the supply of doses. And right now we have several vaccines in the country. How do you assure Kenyans, the ones that have received, especially the first doses of the new vaccines that we have in Kenya, that when they are due, they will receive timely their second doses? Again, this month, at the end of this month, we expect expiry of some of the doses that we received some early this year. Maybe can you update on, do we have any vaccines that will be expiring, and what do you intend to do to ensure enough supply?
So very good question. You remember when we launched our vaccine campaign, we had the challenge of not having enough doses in place to just ensure that continuous momentum of the vaccination program. And through the efforts of government, through the efforts of the Ministry of Health, we were able to secure more and more doses. And together with our partners, particularly the COVAX facility that was really supporting countries, different countries across the world to provide this vaccine, started sort of giving us, you know, there were inflows of vaccines, steady inflows of vaccines. When we look at our figures right now, we've administered close to 3 million vaccine jabs, let me call them jabs, have already been administered in the Kenyan population. When we look at what is coming in the coming weeks, in the coming days, in the coming months, we have projections that we will be able to at least meet our target of 9 million. So when it comes to supplies, it may not be a challenge for now, at least with the projections that we have right now. Now, when we look at the reception, people coming forward to receive the vaccines, I'm pleased to report we're actually seeing more demand. I'm sure you've had people waiting in clinics, in hospitals, long lines. And so there's an increasing appetite from wananchi to come and get their vaccines. Now, when we look at the AstraZeneca vaccine, the Moderna vaccine, the Pfizer vaccines, Sinopharm, those ones that require 2 doses, every time we're doing our computing, once we issue doses, the expectation, particularly in terms of our logistics, is that we will obviously be able to avail the second dose. However, there was a challenge, if you remember some time back, where we had delays in the doses coming in. And we were able to, of course, consult with, you know, WHO and all other partners to determine when is the optimum time for you to get your second dose. And so what we've seen from that experience, what we learned from that experience early on this year, is that in terms of doses, the doses will come, the vaccines will come. The main thing is to push to ensure that they come on time so that you can ensure you get your second dose. And we are happy. For example, those who received AstraZeneca, we more or less have secured their second dose and they'll be able to get it. But you raise an important point. How do we ensure continuous supply of these doses? And I am especially proud of what we've done as government, because Kenya is one of the few countries in Africa that has actually been able to put money on the table and procure vaccines for itself. And I'm sure you joined us in the airport where we received the Johnson & Johnson vaccines. We do project at the end of that we'll be getting about 13 million vaccines in the country, J&J, and these are only single-shot vaccines, meaning our success in terms of reaching individuals will be better because it's just one shot. You don't have to come back for the second one. And so we have seen, and we're talking to J&J teams to make sure that supply becomes steady. So far, we have agreements that aim to project to have at least 500 doses coming every month. Remember, J&J is situated in South Africa, so again, a proud moment for Africa.
Right.
Vaccines made in Africa, vaccines bought by Kenya, made in Africa. And the hope is that the logistic framework and the supply chains in South Africa will enable us to continue getting, continuous, stocks of J&J.
Right.
But in terms of resources, in terms of finances, Kenya has secured those finances for those vaccines.
All right, I'm told time is not on our side.
Right.
Really?
There's so much to discuss on the UHC journey.
There's so much to talk about, but maybe parting short. I welcome your parting short on do you pride yourself as a ministry, even as we, head to 2022 and, the head of state's term comes to an end, and he had actually mandated the ministry to ensure that the UHC is achieved. What is your position? Are you proud?
I can tell you, one, as a health economist, because that's my background, Kenya has made big strides. The fact that we have a bill in parliament that is going to cement UHC, a bill that is going to mandate UHC in Kenya, is a big step towards making this possible. And secondly, if we look at all the other investments that we've talked about in the Ministry of Health, centers such as the Kidney Institute, oxygen available in our health facilities, good collaborations with Council of Governors, more staff working in the health facilities, discussions and task forces that are going to reduce the cost of medicines in Kenya. I think we're moving definitely in the right direction.
All right, we shall definitely revisit this conversation.
Definitely.
Please receive my invitation in advance.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Masi Mwangangi,
Thank you so much,
for making time for us.
Asante.
Thank you for watching. That's the end of this discussion. We had Dr. Masi Mwangangi, Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Health, talking about COVID-19 and UHC. Keep talking to us at KBC Channel 1 News and at Purity_Museo. The hashtag is Prime Edition. Cynthia Nyama is up next with the day's business. Stay with us.
If I'm guessing correctly, she must be General Hung's daughter.
To you? He was only just reinstated. I'm a subordinate. Why would he be visiting out of the blue?
I went to Yongqing Nunnery.
You went to visit Abbess Jingzi?
Yeah.
Master's coming! Put this away, put this away! Where should I put it all? Under the bed, hurry!
曾以为只是寒冷如常的冬天，不管我。
Good evening, I'm Cynthia Nyamai, and now to business. The government is assessing the current drought situation with a focus on animal feeds and pasture as pressure mounts around following importation of Folda Livestock. Principal Secretary Harry Kimtai says the exercise will inform the livestock to take off programs, budgetary allocations as the government institutes the drought mitigation strategy affecting households.
Kenyans will continue to bear the high cost of livestock products due to costlier animal feeds that has seen some manufacturers cut on production to minimize losses. This, as the government says, is still assessing the impact of drought on animal feeds and pasture in the country amid lobbying from millers to import fodder.
We're looking at this current situation of drought. As we allow importations to take place, we may have to also look at the animal feeds and allow them either duty-free or at a subsidized rate.
The assessment exercise will also see the offtake program budget revised upwards from the current 600 million shillings in a bid to increase the number of beneficiaries. To show up the offtake program, the Kenya Meat Commission has renovated its canning line at the Athi River facility to process animal purchased from herders.
Kenya Meat Commission has now been revived and is running, We need to can some of this beef that we are collecting. I mean, the animals that we have slaughtered that have macheted body weight, and convert it because it is good for a corn beef.
Herders believe rangeland management and planting drought-resistant grass varieties are the long-term solutions in averting animal losses during droughts.
Every time we have a drought like the one we have now, the GDP is going to go down for the whole country because we have to turn the resources to feed those people.
Bragaria grass varieties have been released by Calro and will be introduced to support the sector.
Benson Rioba reporting for Prime Edition.
Tourism and Wildlife Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala is calling on the private sector to support conservation efforts to boost the wildlife and natural resources in the country. Balala says conservation of wildlife resources requires innovation in raising funds and involving the public and other partners. Here are the details of this and other stories from the corporate scene.
Tourism and Wildlife Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala says wildlife conservation is an expensive undertaking and is appealing to partners to join hands with the government in conservation initiatives.
We appreciate it's a new innovative way of raising funds. Conservation is not cheap. Conservation is very expensive.
It is our hope and belief that this partnership will go forth and help in conservation efforts to preserve and increase the numbers of our majestic African elephants.
Speaking when he received 3 million shillings from the East African Breweries Limited, Elephant Corporation, Twiga Tours and Animal Adoption Advocacy, Balala said the latest National Wildlife Census had identified the species that require attention as far as conservation is concerned. Elsewhere, CIC Group has excluded children in a new cover for senior citizens aged above 60 and capped at 80.
So the product is coverage is quite expansive. It caters for inpatient expenses, outpatient, dental and optical expenses.
CIC General Insurance Managing Director Fred Ruo says the cover is exclusively for senior citizens, and policymakers who have dependents aged below 18 would have to take another cover for them. Finally, farmers in Kenya will now access agronomic advice on weeds, diseases and pest control following the launch of an application that links them to agricultural experts from Cotiva Agri-Science.
You really do not need to have internet to access all the features and benefits that it can provide you as a farmer. What we're trying to do here as Cotiva is really bring, I would say, leading edge technology to the hands of our farmers, giving them the power to actually do quick diagnostics and be able to figure out exactly what's going wrong in their farming operations.
Once threats are identified using the mobile app known as Covita Farm Fundi, farmers can consult with specialized crop scientists and local agronomists for treatment recommendations via email or the web links. Regina Manyara reporting for Prime Edition.
Now to international stories, where job vacancies have hit a record high in the United Kingdom as the economic recovery continues and furlough scheme starts to wind down. The number of vacancies in the 3 months to August rose above 1 million for the first time since records began in 2001. Here are the details of this and other stories from across the globe.
The unemployment rate fell to 4.6% in the 3 months to July, while in August, payrolls showed another monthly increase of 241,000 to 29.1 million in total. In the furlough scheme, the UK government initially paid 80% of the wages of people who couldn't work or whose employers could no longer afford to pay them. In August and this month, they continued to decrease their contribution up to 60%, while employers paid 20%, making the employers pay a higher percentage, which in turn encouraged them to bring back their employees. The overall employment rate continues to recover, particularly among groups such as young workers who were hard hit at the outset of the pandemic, while unemployment has fallen. Meanwhile, a flaw which could infect iPhones and iPads known as zero clicks, which lets hackers access devices even if users do not click on a link or file, has been identified by independent researchers. Apple has issued a software patch to block the spyware. The previously unknown vulnerability affected all major Apple devices, including iPhones, Macs, and Apple Watches. Apple said it issued the security update in response to a maliciously crafted PDF file. Security experts have said that although the discovery is significant, most users of Apple devices should not be overly concerned, as such attacks are usually highly targeted. Finally, China could become the world's largest importer within 5 years. According to a report released by China International Capital Corporation, China is now the world's largest exporter and the second largest importer. As the domestic economy has stabilized and global commodity prices have recovered, imports in the first 10 months of the year rose 21.5% year-on-year. The country's rising imports have a significant global impact, as it is the largest importer for 41 countries and regions, compared with 36 for the United States. China is also expected to become the world's largest consumer market and start importing more consumer-related products than industrial materials as its growth becomes increasingly consumer-driven.
Well, that wraps up business for today. Up next, sports with Karen Kibet.
Thank you very much, Cynthia Nyamai. It's now time for us to get sporty. My name is Karen Kibet. The Kenya national football team will play Mali in their second Group A match of the ongoing Africa Deaf Football Championship tomorrow, seeking to secure their first win after losing to Senegal in the opening match. The Kenyan team held their final training session today at Nyayo National Stadium before tomorrow's encounter.
The Kenya national football team will be looking for their first win of the ongoing 2021 Africa Deaf Football Championship in Nairobi when they take on Mali in their second Pool A match tomorrow. The Kenyan team failed to defend a 1-goal lead to eventually lose to Senegal 3-1 in their opening encounter 3 days ago and must win tomorrow's match to have any chance of reviving their hopes of securing a ticket to the 2022 Deaf Olympics in Brazil. 16 African nations are competing in the continental event, which also include basketball matches. Meanwhile, Egypt thrashed Gabon in the only match played today at the Kasarani Stadium. Three countries had initially committed to the event, but the number was reduced to 16 due to financial constraints and COVID-19 related issues.
Kariobangi Sharks striker Eric Kapaito has scooped the FKF Premier League Most Valuable Player Award for the 2020-2021 season and the Golden Glove after scoring 24 goals. Kapaito was awarded during a colorful ceremony that was held at Safari Park Hotel this evening. Meanwhile, Tuskers' Robert Matano was named the Coach of the Year.
Kitu cha kwanza nashukuru Mungu, imekuwa season tricky, pia imekuwa season poa. Unaona corona imetuaffect kiasi, but Mungu ametusaidia, tumemaliza ligi poa, amenisaidia pia nimemaliza top scorer, alafu pia hiyo award. Niko happy, nashukuru kila mtu mwenye amenisaidia.
Kwanza naweza taka kushukuru Mungu sana kwa hii award. Nimekuwa nikitafuta miaka na miaka, but at last nimeipata. Nataka kushukuru sana Ulinzi Stars team, wamenisaidia at least nikapatia award. Bila hao singepata. Naweza taka pia kushukuru familia yangu, mamangu, mandugu zangu, sistangu, bibi yangu of course, na watoto wangu wawili wamekuwa pia wakinipomotisha sana.
Najihisi kwa furaha sana. Niko na furaha sana na nashukuru wachezaji wenzangu na team Tusker Sofa kwa kunisaidia na kunimotivate. Nimeweza kushinda hili tuzo na nitaendelea kufanya bidii ili niweze kulishinda msimu ujao.
The hard work pays and that consistent also patience is vital to success. It was a very tough season. The matches were congested. Then we didn't start well because of corona stoppages. First leg, first 10 matches, we stopped the league. We came up again, we started afresh. Now it was very hard and a long season.
Congratulations to all the winners. Moving on, the national men's volleyball team finished 9th in the Africa Volleyball Championships in Kigali, Rwanda, after beating Mali in 3 straight sets of 25-21, 25-21 and 25-20 in a 9th place classification match. Egypt beat Morocco 3-1 to finish 3rd. Finalists Cameroon and Tunisia will now represent Africa in the 2020 FIVB Volleyball Men's World Championship. Meanwhile, national women's volleyball team Malkia Strikers need to beat Tunisia tomorrow so as to qualify for the quarterfinals of the Continental Championships. The Kenyan team, coached by Paul Bitok, lies second in the Group B behind leaders Cameroon. 6 former Kenya international cricketers will captain 6 franchises that will take part in the inaugural Nairobi Cricket League. The franchises will feature Kenyan, Zimbabwean and Sri Lankan cricketers. The Nairobi Provincial Cricket Association, Mombasa Simba Cricket Academy and Anantapura Sports Services have partnered to run the inaugural Nairobi Cricket League that starts on Wednesday at the Ruaraka Sports Club. The tournament, to be played on the T20 format, will have 6 teams, namely the Nairobi Hornbills, Eldoret Hawks, Nakuru Flamingos, Mombasa Eagles, Machakos Vultures and Kisumu Cranes.
On Wednesday at the Ruaraka Sports Club. The tournament, to be played in the T20 format, will have 6 teams, namely the Nairobi Hornbills, the Eldoret Hawks, Nakuru Flamingos, Mombasa Eagles, Machakos Vultures and Kisumu Cranes. They will be captained by former Kenyan internationals Steve Tikolo, Thomas Odoyo, Jimmy Kamande, Martin Suji, Joseph Angara and Kennedy Obuya. Each franchise will have former Zimbabwe and Sri Lanka internationals in their squads to guide upcoming local players. The tournament will run until the 26th of September 2021.
And finally, to matters Champions League. The group stage of what promises to be a fascinating Champions League season gets underway tonight in Europe. Holders Chelsea will begin their Champions League title defense against Zenit St. Petersburg without injured midfielder Kante and winger Christian. Barcelona will play Bayern Munich, while Juventus and Sevilla will also be in action tonight. Don't let my smile fool you. I'm sleeping a sad woman tonight as Manchester United, despite Ronaldo scoring for us, the young boys have beaten us 2-1. But we definitely wish Chelsea all the best in their match tonight. That's all from me, Karen Kibet. Do have yourself a lovely night, but I do hand you back to Tom and Purity.
Well done.
Of course, my smile should not also fool them because I'm a Man United fan. But anyway, thank you so much, Karen Kibet, for that sports update. And of course, that report and sports update by Karen Kibet brings us to the end of Prime Edition this Tuesday night. It's always a great pleasure having your company. My name is Purity Museo. Susan Thuku has been our sign language interpreter tonight. Good night.
Well, that's all we had time for you on the day that fuel prices shot up by 8 shillings per litre. My name is Mboya. Until next week, Monday, Tuesday, from Broadcasting House. Good night. God bless you.
College.
Vera Beauty and Fashion College, with branches in Nairobi, Eldoret, Thika and Meru. Did you know that we are a TVET approved institution? We offer courses in fashion design, interior design in soft furnishing, event decoration, flower arrangement, event planning, hairdressing, barbering and dreadlocks, beauty therapy, makeup, nail technology, spa massages, teaching skills, TOT, solo business management, and many more. Register now and visit our website on www.verabeautycollege.com. You can also call on 0725 923 550 Nairobi branch, 0728 087 689 Eldoret branch, 0722 227428 Thika branch, 0725 000 706 Meru branch. Vera Beauty and Fashion College, a TVET approved institution.
Ili kupata skiza tune hii ya jitume mwenyewe kwa simu yako, bonyeza star 811 star 963 hash.
Unavyojikakamua kupata ufanisi, ndivyo utakavyofurahi baada ya kufanikiwa. Usisubiri kusukumwa na mtu, jitume mwenyewe.
Ili kupata skiza tune hii, bonyeza star 811 star 963 hash, star 811 star 963 hash.
曾以为只是寒冷如常的冬天。
If I'm guessing correctly, she must be General Hung's daughter.
To you, he was only just reinstated. I'm a subordinate. Why would he